In this session, we will read about pattern congruity. At first, I want to read this paragraph, and after that, I explain the data. Just you should pay attention to this point that phonology is very important and is based for all of your lessons. You should know, if you want to be a good linguist, you should know the phonology. And some of the field of linguistics are related to phonology, and phonology is based for them. Therefore, I want you to pay attention to this matter. And I know that at first, when you read these rules and these matters, they are not easy, and it is not an easy task. You should read them and practice them many times if you want to dominate this matter. At first, for the first time which I read this matter, they were hard for me, and I read them more times to learn them. And I want you to review this movie about the topic of phonology more and more and many times to learn them. Pattern congruity, and if at the first time you shouldn't able to learn them, it is a common, because it happened for me and my and other professors. At first it may be hard. Pattern congruity provides another ground for arguing against phonemic theory. As you remind, in the last session, we say something about the disadvantages of a phonemic theory, which caused that phonology, generative phonology, comes after this theory. One of the most celebrated examples comes from Halle in 1959. Most Russian obstruents have distinctive voicing. Here you can see the Russia data. The Russian obstruent, you know that which sounds are obstruent. The sound which we have the obstacle when producing them in our mouths. For example, like P, like K, like V, like T. Distinctive voicing, you know, by voicing sounds and devoicing sounds. That is, there is a voiced and voiceless consonant that are otherwise identical in place and manner of articulation that contrast, as shown by minimal pairs in 53. Please pay attention to this data. We have Paka, meanwhile, and in the right side we have Baka, mean sides. Please pay attention to this data in the left column and right column. Here we have Paka. These words are the same, but their first sound is different, and it makes them as a minimal pairs because they have different meaning. By minimal pairs, we mean those sounds who are the same, but just they are different from each other just because of just one sound, and they have different meaning. Here Paka mean while, but Baka mean sides, and they are different from each other just because of their first sounds, their first consonant. Here we have P and B, both of them are obstruent. We consider them as obstruent. P is voiceless consonant, but B is voiced consonant. When they becomes instead of each other, they make two different words, which we consider them as a minimal pairs. Other example, Tom and Dom. D and T, both of them are obstruent. Here T is voiceless, but T is voiced. And we consider these two words as minimal pairs because they create the differences in meaning. Tom mean volume and dom mean house. Sloy and zloy. Se, which is obstruent, fricative, which is voiceless, and ze, which is voiced. These two words are different from each other just because of their first sounds. Sloy means layer, zloy means bad. Shar and jar. Again, their first sounds are different, and it makes them different from each other, and we consider them as minimal pairs. Sphere, hit. Klop, glop. It is the voice form of K, and they are different from each other. We consider such a word as a minimal pairs. They are different from each other just because of one sound. One word have the voiced form of the obstruent, and another has the devoiced form of that sound. They are the same just because of their first sound, and because they have the different meaning, we consider them as minimal pairs. But here we check this data, which we say that just because of these two consonants, voice and voiceless, because of their differences in the manner of as I told you that they are identical in place and manner of articulation, it means that P and B, both of them are labial sound, but they are different from each other just because of voice feature. One of them is voice and another is voiceless. And here T and D are identical because of their parades and manner of articulation. Z and C, it is true about Z and C, she and G, and K and G. These data, their first sound, they are identical, and they are different just because of their first sound. Their first sound are identical in place and manner of articulation, but they are different just because of the voice feature. One is voice and another is voiceless, and it causes they have different differences in meaning, and we consider them as minimal pairs. Now pay attention to the another data of Russian words, of Russian language. But 3 Russian voiceless obstruent. Please pay attention to this point. 3 Russian voiceless obstruent: H, Ch, and Ts. Pay attention to this data, which are voiceless obstruent, have no contrastive phonemic counterparts. In Russian, we don't have any sound, any pair for these sounds, any voice pair for these sounds. For example, we don't have in Russian, we don't have the voice form of H, voice form of Ch, and voice form of Ts. We don't have such a pair for these sounds, for these voiceless obstruent sounds in Russian. Therefore, we don't have any words which have the which we consider them as minimal pairs because of the voice form of these sounds, because we don't have such a sounds in the phonology system of the Russian language. They don't have the phonemic counterparts. Pay attention to this point. It is very important, and because of it's important, I repeat it again. In Russian, we have 3 voiceless obstruent like H, Ch, and Ts, which don't have contrastive phonemic counterpart. But the corresponding voiced obstruent, we say that we don't have contrastive phonemic counterpart for these sounds, but corresponding voice obstruent like G, which is voice counterpart of G, J, and Z. These three sounds are the voice form of these sounds, are found phonetically in Russian. We don't have their phonemic counterparts. It means that we don't have two sounds which differ from each other just because of this sound, the voice form of these sounds. But phonetically, we don't create any differences in meaning. We have the voice form of these sounds phonetically. Pay attention to this note, to this term. Here is phonemic and here is the phonetic. In phonemic, we have differences in meaning, but in phonetic, we don't have any differences in meaning. Russian has a rule of voicing assimilation by which an obstruent takes on the voicing of an immediately following obstruent. That is, an obstruent becomes voiced if the immediately following obstruent is voiced. We have assimilation. And become voiceless if the immediately following obstruent is voiceless. Pay attention to this data from Russian. We want to check these three sounds in this word. We have Magli. Magli means whether he suck. And we have Magbi. Magbi, where he to suck. Jetli, where he burned. Jetbi, here and here, where he to burn. Okay. The replacement of K, as I told you, when we have double slashes in both sides of the sounds, we consider them as the morphophonemic level. By G here, K and G. Please pay attention to this data. The replacement of K here by G here in the first line of 44 must be a matter of morphophonemic. We show them in this way. Since, as we saw in 53, the sound K and G are contrasitive in Russian and thus separate phonemes here. We told you that replacing K and G caused the phonemic differences here. K and G creates a definition in meaning. K and G. We consider them as phonemic feature. But pay attention to this data. The sound K and G are contrasitive in Russian and so separate phoneme. Okay. We have two sounds which are different from each other just because of these two sounds. And we call them as minimal pair. However, in second line of 44 here, the replacement of Ch and J is allophonic. By allophonic, it means that they don't create differences in meaning, since these sounds are not contrast. They are not contrast. Thus, phonemic theory requires two separate voicing assimilation rules for Russian, one morphophonemic and one allophonic, which misses the generalizations that a single unified process is involved. Generative phonology solves this problem. Here we have problem with such a data by the phonemic theory. But in generative phonology solves this problem once again by not requiring there to be a single level where all and only the contrasitive segments are represented. There can then be a single rule which doesn't care whether assimilation produces an otherwise distinctive segment or not. In fact, there seems to be a major contradiction in taxonomic phonemic theory. In order to determine the pattern of contrasting and allophonic segments in a language, an analysis is made on the basis of a phonetic transcriptions. But once the allophones have been determined, the rule responsible for their distribution must operate on phonemic representation. For many of the examples in this chapter discusses no problems, but in the cases discussed in the section where rules interact with each other, problems can arise. This is because there is no way to ensure, on the basis of phonetic forms alone, that the appropriate conditions for a particular rule will be present in the phonemic representation. In more complex cases, it is possible to start the analysis in the manner described in this chapter, but ultimately recourse must be had to other information about the sound pattern of the language, such as alternation discussed in chapter 4. Okay, here we say that we have to kind of K and G. One make differences in meaning, and another don't create any differences in meaning. So by the phonemic theory, we say that one allophone or the allophones should relate to just one phoneme, no more than that. Here we have two signs of K and G. One of them create differences in meaning and another not, and we can't describe it through the phonemic theory. But according to the generative theory, we can explain them. Okay. Summary. I want to summarize this chapter, the chapter 2, their importance point, and we can review the previous matters. Our focus in this chapter has been on the distribution of language sounds. Our focus in this chapter has been on the distribution of the language sounds. The grammar of a language must contain a list of morphemes. You know the definition of morpheme. Each specified with the unpredictable phonological information on the pronunciation of that morpheme, as well as with syntactic and semantic information that allows the speaker to use that morpheme correctly. The phonological information for each morpheme is given in terms of contrastive sound unit. It means that they carry differences in meaning. The underlying representation, which I explained for you, of that morpheme emitting predictable aspects of pronunciation. Predictable aspects of pronunciation are the result of applying rule on the underlying representation. As I told you, we have the underlying representation level and the phonetic representation level, which I explained them for you. A major aspect of phonological analysis consists in determining which aspects of pronunciation are unpredictable and therefore part of the underlying representation of the morphemes of that language, and which aspects are predictable, and establishing the rules that predict these aspects. Aspects of pronunciation assigned to the underlying representation of morphemes are peculiar to those morphemes, whereas rules are general, applying where relevant throughout the language. So sorry. The English rules that separate word initial voiceless stop applies to every word that has the initial voiceless stop in its underlying representation. Here we just review the previous matters. But the fact that a word like pin begins with a voiceless bilabial stop, p, is unpredictable, hence listed. On the other hand, Hindi contrasts separated and unseparated stops. We say that aspiration is important in Hindi data, and aspiration considered as a distinctive feature in this language. So this information must be listed for Hindi, unlike English. which in English aspiration is not a contrasitive feature. We can distinguish two broad categories of rules. Allophonic rules result in segments which are never contrasitive in language. It means that their differences is because of just the phonetic representation, and they are not, they have the same meaning, and we consider them as the allophonic form of one phoneme. Therefore, the allophonic rules result in segments which are never contrasitive in the language, such as aspiration in English. Aspiration in Persian in English is not a distinctive feature. It means that, and it is allophonic rules. It means that we don't have two words in English and in Persian which have the different meaning just because of the aspiration. For example, pin with aspirated p and pin in English and Persian is the same. But in Hindi, we consider aspiration as a distinctive feature because it make a minimal pause. By allophonic, we means this rule that we have such a segment which they are not contrasitive in their language, and their differences is because of just their phonetic level, and we consider them as allophone. Such rules are generally easy to discover. They are predictable. Neutralizations, which I explained for you in the previous sessions, neutralization rules, and if you remember, neutralization was one of the problem of phonemic theory. Neutralization rules have the effect of meaning of merging segments in particular environment that are contrasitive in other environment. In English, voiced and voiceless alveolar stop generally contrast. Okay, voiced and voiceless alveolar stops, for example, like T and D. Voiced, which is D, and voiceless is T, which are the alveolar stop contrast with each other in words like, for example, teen and din. Okay, teen and din. Hit and hid, which they are minimal pairs just because of these two sounds. But in the environment, in this environment, which we have at the first vowel, it is the environment of that sound, and the unstressed vowel, which we say we call this environment as an intervocalic environment. Okay, we say that D and T are contrasitive with each other, and we consider them as the contrasitive feature. But in this environment, both are realized phonetically as the voice flap or re. Both of them in this environment becomes re, turns to re, flap re. Therefore, we have neutralizations. We say that D and T in this feature, in this environment, are neutralized, and we have neutralization. It means that two distinctive features sounds become the same in some environment. In such cases of overlapping distribution, we need a rule to account for the neutralization in one environment, while allowing both T and D in underlying representations. Such rules may be more difficult to find because they often require access to morphological information as well as purely phonetic information. As I told you, the taxonomic theory or phonemic theory couldn't be able to explain the neutralization. And for explaining the neutralizations, consider the morphophonemic level. Because according to the taxonomy or phonemic theory, we say that the allophones form of one morpheme should just related to just one morpheme. But here, this re related to this allophonic form of re, related to two phonemic D and T, which it is not acceptable in taxonomy theory or phonemic theory. Therefore, it was for solving this problem, it consider a morphophonemic level. But we don't have a problem with neutralization in generative phonology. But the rules are still stated in the phonological terms, not morphological ones. But take up this question in more details in chapter 4, which is concerned with alternation. Prior to that, however, we will develop the theory of distinctive features in the next chapter. Okay. One point which I want to focus on it is that the exercises. If you want to learn the matters which I told you, you can understand that you learn the matter or not, and if you want to assess yourself, you should do that by exercises. If you are able to do the exercises, you learn that matter. And I want you to do the exercises, please. If you want to learn these matters, you should do the exercises because they are very important. And through the exercises, you can learn the matter. But the first one is that I just want to read the first question. The exercises in this chapter ask you to determine the distribution of certain sound in various languages. Except in exercise 2.9, all examples are single words. Word boundaries are not explicitly represented in this data, but may be required as a conditioning environment. I want you to do the exercises. Here I want to think about this data. I want to read its question. Turkish, Underhill in 1976. The data are from this language. Determine the phonemic status. The question is that. Determine the phonemic status. You know what we mean by phonemic. Of re, which is voiced, and re, which is voiceless. This sign show the voiceless sound. If they are allophones, you know what we mean by allophones. State the rule that determines their distribution. If they are allophone, state the rule. You should give a rule that determines their distribution. If they contrast, they are contrastive, give pair where they occur in similar or identical environment. You should find the environment of these two kind of pair. And you should give the rule for this sound. And at the end of the searching and checking, you should say that it is phonemic or allophonic. I want to do this exercise and I want to give you this opportunity to think about this data. At first, for finding the rules, you should pay attention to data. The data are very important. Just through the data and the environment, we can give a rule. Okay, you should do such steps. At first, you should pay attention to the data. We have the voiced re and voiceless re. And we want to understand that these re and re are allophones or phoneme. Here, and we should give its rule. We have re. At first I wanted to find the environment of such a re, voice re. This voice re comes at the between two vowel. It means that it is intervocalic situation, and at the okay, it is intervocalic situation, or we say that it is at the beginning of the syllable. And here this re comes between two vowel in the intervocalic environment, and here is the same. But here this re comes at the beginning of the syllable. It comes after the vowel, and it comes at the beginning of the word. Okay, we had such an environment, intervocalic. I want to write them. Okay, I want to write the environment of voiced re. I don't have all of the symbol here, but I want to learn you to teach you to the way which we analyze the data, and if you should know this way. Okay, we see that according to the environment. Here I want to write the environment of voice re. It comes in the intervocalic environment. Therefore, you know that how we write the intervocalic environment. Okay, it comes in this environment. V, and now I want to just write one line. Re and re. It is the intervocalic environment. It is one of the environment for voice re. Other is at the beginning of the syllable. Here, beginning of the syllable. Therefore, I should write the symbol of for syllable. It is the sign for syllable. And others is after the vowel, which show its environment this way, that after the vowel we have V. This line stands for the environment of that sound. It stands for the environment of voiced re, and it comes at the beginning of the word. This is the sign of the word boundary, and this line. Okay, it was according to data, and you should repeat it again. When you want to analyze this data, you should pay attention to data. If you don't have if you don't have the attention on the data, you can't do that. It is not an easy task to find the environment of the sounds. Therefore, when you want to find the rule and the environment of the sounds, you should pay attention to data. Okay. It is the environment of re. And I wanted to find the environment of voiceless re. It is the environment of voice, the environment of voiced re. My cap lock is on. The environment of voiced re. I want to find the environment of voiceless re, or voiceless re, the environment, the of voiceless re, which I can't show its symbol in Notepad because we don't have such a symbol. It is the voiceless re, I mean this sound. Okay, at first, as I told you, we should pay attention to data, and we should consider that these types of re comes in which environment. In this word, it comes at the end of the word. Here, it comes at the end of the word. At the end of the word, at the end of the word, at the end of the word, at the end of the word. Okay, it is the environment of voiceless re, which is at the end of the word. I show it in this way. At the end of the word. Okay, as I told you, one of the important matter in analyzing data and environment is the variety of the environment. We consider the sound with the high variety environment, high various environment, as a base form. Therefore, I can say that this voice re is base form, and this voiceless re is allophonic form of re. About the allophonic or phonic, I want to decide according to the meaning of the word. We have the various environment for this voice re. Instead of this environment, I can say that it comes elsewhere. Elsewhere. Instead of all of this environment, I can say elsewhere. I mean that this voice re comes in the all of the environment except at the end of the word. Therefore, except the end of the word, in the elsewhere this voice re can come. Therefore, instead of this by elsewhere, we means all of the environment except, for example, this environment. Therefore, instead of such a environment, we say elsewhere. As you remember, we have such a we heard such a terms elsewhere, which we use it for the various environment. We say that elsewhere. I remember that I told you about this. I want to find that it is allophonic or phonemic re in the sounds. We have kere, which means time, and kara, which means black. Okay, by this data I can't understand that is I think that they are allophonic, not phonemic. Of re and re, if they are allophonic, state the rule determines this distribution. They contrast give pair where they occur in similar or identical environment. Because the data are different from each other. For example, we don't have kere and kere, which the two sounds become different from each other just because of the environment of re. I think it is allophonic, not phonemic differences. And we consider the re as a base form, and voiced re itself and voiceless re are the allophonic form of that re. Okay. In another exercise, told us that English has 3 allophones. Okay. We know, as the question says, they are allophones. State the distribution in the dialect shown. Here you can see its distribution according to this data. If your dialect differs, state the distribution in your dialect also. Here I don't want you to find your dialect. You should just do this exercise. I want you to do this exercise, and I want you to think about this exercise. Here we have 3 allophones of the le. I want you to find its environment and decide about the base form. Which one of these le is base form? Therefore, the work and the step which you should pass is finding the environment of these 3 kind of le, which they are allophones, and give its rule and say that which of these le are base form for 3 others. We have clear le, dark le, velarized, and syllabic, which is velarized le. Syllabic velarized le. This sound means this sign show the syllabic sounds, and this sign between the le show the velarized le, which we call them as dark le. Please pay attention to this data and find their environment and their base form. Which one is the base form of these sounds? Please do this exercise. In another exercise, it wants us to the 2 lateral le and clear le and its velarized le are in complementary distribution. You read about complementary distribution. Determine the distribution and the rule. State also why you choose one over the other as underlying representation. Please pay attention to this data and do this exercise. And other exercises. Exercises help you to learn the matters in best way. Here we have aspiration of consonant in predictable. Determine the distribution and state the rule. Okay, for aspiration in this data. Another exercise is about the phonetic vowel, but only 3 underlying phonemic vowels. Determine the distribution of vowels and rules that govern it. In this exercises, you should draw the rules for the data. I think if you pay attention to the matters of your lesson, you can do them. For example, here is about the vowel length, which we read about that. State a rule taking stress and distribution of consonant into consideration. And here it wants you to find the location of stress is predictable. Okay, formulate a rule taking vowel length and the distribution of consonants in 2 consideration tanks. Okay, it wants you to find the stress place. Determine the condition under which the labiodental nasal ng and the velar nasal ng occur. You should find the environment again. Okay, in these exercises, based on the data which we do an example of each of them in your lesson, you can do such exercises, and I think the exercises are very important, and try to do them, please. If you want to learn phonology in best way, and if you want to be a linguist, you should do such exercises. You should dominate on the phonology. And here again it wants you to find the phonemic and of such sounds, of some sounds. All of the matters which we explain for you and teach you in the exercises, it wants you to do them practically, to find your faults and your weaknesses. I think if you can, please do the exercises and ask me your question, because it can help you. Okay, therefore pay attention to the exercises, please, and try to do them based on the matters which we had in this session. And I want you to ask me your question. Thank you.